Tonight, inshallah, we'll talk about one ayah, one verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah. So for you who want to, check it, it's Surah number 5 and verse number 94. So even later, if you want to study further, you know exactly where to find it. Again, Surah number 5 and verse number 94. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَيَبْلُوَنَّكُمُ اللَّهُ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الصَّيْدِ. O you who believe, you're going to be tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with something or some amount of صيد. And we'll talk about صيد in detail. تَنَالُهُ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَرِمَاحُكُمْ. And this صيد is going to be reachable by your hands, so it's going to be readily accessible. You could reach it by hand or by your spears. لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know who amongst you will fear Him in private. فَمَنْ اعْتَدَى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. And the one who transgresses after that, after the warning, then he will have a severe punishment. So that's what the ayah is. We're going to focus on that today, inshallah. So what is صيد? صيد refers to hunting, usually. And in the Islamic definition, it is basically anything that is wildlife that you hunt and that is edible. So it has to be also a land animal. So obviously, if it is a fish, it is not hunting. We all refer to it as fishing. And it cannot be a domestic animal because you don't hunt domestic animals. Like you don't hunt a chicken, you don't hunt a cow. You hunt a wild animal. Okay? And it is usually edible. Although you can argue you can go and hunt non-edible items, but the definition here is that it has to be edible. And that is any animal that is not a carnivore, for example. Any animal that does not have, if it's a bird, it cannot have a claw, like a falcon, an eagle, and so forth. So anything that is edible, whether it's a bird or an animal, qualifies as صيد, Okay. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the believers that He's going to test you through hunting. And you wonder, what is this about? What is this talking about? How is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala testing the believers through a hunting? Is this like a hunting game? Is this a hunting exam? Or what is it? Well, first of all, this is talking about people who are in a state of Ihram. Alhamdulillah, some of us recently have completed Umrah. So we went. And we have some of these people here. Raise your hand. No, just kidding. It's up to you. Alhamdulillah, it's a big blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I think it's a great thing to do, especially for young kids. It's a great exercise. It's a great act of worship. And, it's a lot of fun. It's halal fun. Unfortunately, nowadays, a lot of people, when you say fun or you say I'm having a good time, usually it refers to something that is not halal. And they think that you cannot have fun, you cannot have a good time when you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you do an act of worship. And that's a big problem. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that many Muslims are not proud of their religion. And they have a weak personality. And they bow down, not physically, but mentally, to others. And they bow down to the pressure they have in school and all the peer pressure. Umrah is one of the great acts of worship. And those of you who went, you know that there are certain things we have to do. So for example, you are in Medina and you're going to go to Mecca to make the Umrah, right? So right before you leave Medina, you wear the clothing of Ihram, which is basically nothing but 2 pieces of cloth. That's all you're allowed to use. One to cover the lower half, and the other one is to cover the upper half. and you have to know how to tie it and all of that. So we went through all of that, and we had a great time showing how to do this, because you got to be careful. You need to make sure it doesn't fall apart. But then there are certain things you're not supposed to do while in a state of ihram. So once you leave Medina going to Mecca, let's say you take a bus or a car, there is a place right outside of Medina called Dhul Hulayfa or Abiyar Ali. From that point and on, you declare the state of ihram. And after that point, there's certain things you're not supposed to do. Can somebody remind me what these things are? So that's an Umrah quiz now. Before that, hold on that, because that's the dars today. What can you not do when you are in a state of ihram? You cannot shave. Well, you cannot cut any hair of your body. You cannot touch any hair of your body. Of course, if it falls by mistake, that's fine, but you're not supposed to intentionally remove any hair from the body. What else can you not do? Fight. You cannot fight. Okay. So that's more like La Jidala fil Hajj. It does not necessarily violate the state of ihram, but yes, in general, when you are in Hajj or Umrah, you're not supposed to fight with other people. Although sometimes it's really hard. Some people, it's just, you know what I'm talking about if you've been there. I want the youth, come on, the people who participated in Umrah, you should know this. Yes, sorry.
You can't get married.
Oh, that's the one you memorized. Okay, so you cannot get married. You cannot even write a contract, a marriage contract, in a state of ihram. What else can you not do? So quickly, you cannot cut your nail. You cannot wear perfume or cologne or attar or oil. Anything that has a scent, you're not supposed to touch it.
You cannot wear a belt.
So as far as clothing, you cannot wear anything that is tailored to the shape of your body. Now, I don't agree that you cannot wear a belt, because if it's just to hold your towel or your garment or the cloth, that's fine, because that is not tailored. يعني غير مفصل على أجزاء الجسم. It's not tailored to fit your body. It's not like a shirt where you have sleeves or you have a collar. These are tailored to fit your body. Likewise, if you have a pants and so forth. But if it's just a belt to hold the garment together, that's fine. Likewise, you cannot cover the head. Yes?
I thought you're not supposed to wear something that is stitched.
That is a common misconception. The brother said you're not supposed to wear anything that is stitched. That is not correct, because everything is stitched, by the way. The towel itself has threads, and it is stitched. What is not, again, the people mistake the word makhit for anything that has stitches. Makhit here means anything that is tailored and it is made to fit your body. Not to mean that it has khuyut or threads, because everything has threads in it, whether you could see it or not. So this is not about the rules of Umrah.
Stitched in the sense not weave. What you're talking about is weave.
Al-makhit is something that is tailored to fit the body. Anything else is allowed. So even if it has stitches, like for example, even some shoes might have stitches in it, or some belts that have some stitches in it, that is fine. Because the meaning of makhit is something that fits the body, meaning it's tailored to make, to fit the members of the body. That is what is forbidden. That is the meaning of makhit. So also what is not allowed is to wear shoes that cover all of the feet. But if it is showing the ankles, for example, and showing part of the top of the feet, that's fine. Like for example, sandals. Sandals are totally fine. But to wear something like a shoe that covers the whole entire foot, that is not allowed, and it breaks the ihram. Now the one thing that I want to focus on today, because this is not about Umrah, so we can't go into details. That's why, I apologize. I don't mean to stop the conversation, but I want to get to this point. One of the things that are forbidden in the state of Umrah is hunting. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about a specific incident. And that is the first Umrah that the Prophet ﷺ did with the companions. And that is Umrah al Hudaybiyah. You all know that almost at the end of the 6th year after Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ, the companions, made the intention to go and make Umrah to Mecca. You know, before that they could not go to Mecca because there was a war between the Quraysh, the people of Mecca, and the Muslims in Medina. So all this time, since they migrated to Medina, they have not seen the Kaaba. They have not laid eyes on the Kaaba. And they were so they were so anxious and eager to see the Kaaba. They were longing to see the Kaaba and to make Hajj or Umrah. So here the Prophet ﷺ ordered the companions to go, and he said, this is going to be a peaceful march. We're not going to do any fighting. We're going to call all the Arabs to participate if they want. And they went to Mecca in a state of Ihram. So they did the Ihram just like we did in Medina. They wore the Ihram and they made the Niyyah, and they started their Umrah. Now as they get close and close to Mecca, the people of Mecca hear about them. And they said, no way we're going to let Muhammad and his people come near the Kaaba. Because we're in a state of war, we don't care what they claim and all of that. And in fact, they sent a small army led by Khalid bin al-Walid and Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl, like 200 horsemen, to stop the Muslims from making Umrah. And this was in Dhul Qa'dah, which is a month right before Dhul Hijjah. It's a long story. We're not going to tell all the story about the details of Hudaybiyah. The point is, and this is something you don't hear about when you read it in Seerah books, you don't hear about this particular story. That's why I want to focus on that. So I'm not going to talk about the Hudaybiyah and the truce and what went on and how it happened. We can defer that to a different time. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about a specific test that He set up for these people. Now we know hunting is not allowed. It will violate the state of Ihram. If you hunt, you kill an animal like with those attributes, as we mentioned, a land animal that is wild and that is edible. If you do that, the state of Ihram will be violated. So what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made hunting so readily available. So the Sahaba were seeing all kinds of wildlife around them, left and right, everywhere. Now we're talking about Arabia. It doesn't have lots of animals to begin with, not so abundantly like some other places. Not to mention that the Arabs were so fond of hunting. They loved it so much. And they do it also not just for sport. Like nowadays, a lot of hunting happens for sport. And I cannot even believe, people fish and they get the fish, it's so big, and then they throw it in the water. They do it purely for sport. So these people were not just doing it for sport. They were hungry, they want to eat. So it's a great test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that booty, these animals were getting so close to the Muslims. Yet they knew they cannot touch it. And here what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, تَنَالُهُ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَرِمَاحُكُمْ. Your hands even can reach it. Because sometimes, if you have a bird that is edible, and it has offsprings, or small chicks, whatever. That is also part of hunting. You can just go and grab it. You don't even have to, you don't have to shoot it or anything, right? You can just grab it. This is how accessible hunting was. Yet the Muslims couldn't touch it, couldn't eat from it, and couldn't take it. So that's what it says. تَنَالُهُ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَرِمَاحُكُمْ. So there are all kinds of shapes and forms. Some of them were small, accessible, you can just pick up by hand, and others were big. It could be a deer, it could be all kinds of moose, whatever, big animals that you hunt in the desert. So you could shoot with a spear. None of that was allowed. One of the early scholars of Islam, and this is mentioned in Ibn Kathir, one of the tafsirs that is very common, he said, أنزلت هذه الآية في عمرة الحديبية. This ayah, this verse was revealed in the Umrah of Hudaybiyah, that particular incident. فكانت الوحش والطير والصيد تغشاهم في رحالهم. He said all kinds of animals, wild animals, birds, it was coming to them. Like they were in their tents, and the rihal is like a tent. They were coming to the tents, like sitting right outside, or maybe even inside. Like, this doesn't happen, right? It came right at them. فَتَغْشَاهُمْ فِي رِحَالِهِمْ لَمْ يَرَوْا مِثْلَهُ قَطْ. They have never seen anything like it. They've never seen anything like it. And that shows us that it is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because this is not a common occurrence. فَنَهَاهُمُ اللَّهُ عَنْ قَتْلِهِ وَهُمْ مُحْرِمُونَ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade that they would kill any of it while in a state of ihram. Now some people will say, well, this is great. How is that relevant to us? If you remember, I keep saying all the time that there's nothing in the Quran that is said or mentioned. There's not a single story that is not relevant to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mention anything just for entertainment or just like a historical incident, nothing like that. It has to be relevant to us. And some people say, well, why? I mean, we went to Umrah, we never had to hunt, right? We didn't see any animal, we didn't see any bird. So what is the relevance? And maybe it was only one time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made those things very visible and accessible. When the Sahaba wanted to hunt so much. Nowadays we don't care because we get al-baked chicken or something, right? It's all there, right? You just go buy, if you don't understand al-bake, it's like an equivalent of Kentucky fried chicken or something, I don't know. It's such a common, chain in Saudi Arabia. So you get fried chicken, all that stuff. So nobody thinks about hunting these days because you have fast food, you have all kinds of restaurants around you, and food is readily available, so you don't have to go and hunt. So how is it relevant to us? Now immediately after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this is what you need to underline here. Because a lot of time what happens, unfortunately, some Muslims, they want to limit Islam to just some historical incidents, like the seerah, what happened in the seerah, and that's it. And they cannot make an analogy. Analogies are very important in our religion. You can't say, well, I cannot make an analogy only if it is in the Quran or Sunnah. I'll do it, otherwise, I don't have to do anything. That's a big mistake. One of the schools in Islam that no longer exists much is the Zahiri school. And the Zahiri school is like the literal school, where they say if it's mentioned in the Quran, Sunnah, we follow it. If it is not mentioned, it does not have a ruling. Like we cannot even make analogy. Like for example, if drugs are not mentioned in the Quran or Sunnah, but we say it has the same effect as alcohol or a similar effect, not an exact same effect, then it is haram. They say, no, but it's not mentioned in the Sunnah. So what? It has a similar effect. It modifies the state of the mind. So if people say we're not going to do any analogies, then you know that all what you can find in Quran and Sunnah is going to be, as many rulings as you can find. They're going to be limited. And the issues we face every day, they're unlimited. So there has to be analogy. So what is the point here? Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. He said, so that Allah knows who fears Him in ghaib, or in the unseen, the matters that are unseen. This is really what you need to highlight here. That is really the big lesson. What is it talking about? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us the reason I set up this test. Something that is appealing, it is tempting, it's right there, right at your hand, but you're not supposed to touch it. What does that teach you? Well, especially if no one is looking, and you can develop this fear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking. It doesn't matter if someone else is looking or not. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will see who has taqwa, who fears Allah and who does not fear Allah. And that is the purpose of the test. Nowadays, there are so many kinds of temptations. And they are readily available. And they are abundant. Some people came to this country, for example, just to collect wealth. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. Halal, haram, usury, cheating, stealing. They came with this idea that I come to this country and the American dream, and I pick, dollars from the trees. Some people say that, by the way. I don't know where it comes from. And we come here, you have to slave day and night to make a living. But some people came with this idea. And some people became rich not by honest means, not by doing it the right way and getting money the right halal way, but by other means. See how many Muslims have liquor stores selling and making money out of alcohol. And they say, well, I don't drink it. Subhanallah. And the Prophet ﷺ cursed the people who are involved in selling alcohol and making profit from alcohol and making the wine itself, the alcohol itself. And they have the audacity to come and say, well, I don't drink it. But you're providing it for other people. You're making other people intoxicated. You're making other people go drunk. And that's how you're making your money. I don't care how many millions you make. لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. This part of the ayah should be a principle we live by. It should be a principle, qaida, like we live by this rule. Nowadays, so many things are available to us and they're haram. It's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like hunting. It doesn't have to be a rabbit in the desert. It could be somebody on campus. Now you go to any American campus, you go study. And you see nudity all around you. I'm not talking about full nudity, but a great amount of it. And there's a lot of temptation. And it's right there and then. Sometimes they come to you. It's a big temptation. لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. Same test. Nowadays we have the gadgets, the phone. Or anything, iPod, iPad, anything like that, tablets. You know that you can get anything on it. Any kind of haram. Right there. You could be sitting in a small room, in a restroom. No one looking at you, بالغيب. No one is looking at you. And you can access anything. You could be texting someone and talking to them. And it's a prohibited relationship. Because we all know as Muslims, we're not supposed to have any romantic relationship before marriage. But you're having this romantic talk. And it goes on, and sometimes it gets, to a point where even the language used is inappropriate, is haram. And you say, well, I'm not next to them, I'm not, talking to them face to face. It's still haram. لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. Same thing. You say, well, it's right there, it's so tempting, like right in my hand, no one is looking. And I can access anybody. I have like 50 friends. At any minute, I can just click one button and I'll be talking to someone, or I'll be watching someone's video. But you're not supposed to, if the video is not appropriate. Porn, you talk about porn. Subhanallah, these days. Muslim kids. لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. This ayah is so important and so applicable today. Because nowadays we have so many things that are readily available. They are abundant. Everywhere you go. And it's so easy to access. Now we have like 5 years old, even 2-year-old are learning how to swipe. And they do it very well, much faster than me and you. These gadgets are becoming so accessible, easy access to everyone. And they hide their tracks better than me and you. Don't you think you're a smart parent and many times you don't find out. Just like it is easy to access, it is easy to erase. Snapchat is one good example. You all know why it was invented. For that reason. So no one can detect it. So now it's just between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we know maybe no one is looking at you. And many times you can get away with it, or you think so. You think that you are getting away with it. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, bil ghayb. Should underline this. What does that mean? It means that no human being is looking at you. Only you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is a real test because many people show taqwa in public, especially if they're Muslims. I mean, if you are in a Muslim surrounding, especially in Muslim countries, if people are looking at you, usually you don't do haram. And wallahi, some people have lost all kinds of haya, all kinds of shame, so they do it in public as well. And that's worse. Because at least you should have some sense of shame. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested you with a sin in private, you should not go and boast and brag about it in public. But some people do that. And that's the worst thing. And the Prophet ﷺ told us in the hadith, كُلُّ أُمَّتِ مُعَافَ إِلَّا الْمُجَاهِرُونَ. He said, all my ummah is in good shape. You can always rectify a mistake. We all make mistakes. But he said, except one type of people, they are in deeper trouble. And these are the people who broadcast their sins, al-mujahirun. Like if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested you with a sin in private and you made a mistake, you became weak one time, twice, keep it to yourself. But you go and brag about it and tell others about it and encourage other people to do it. These are people who are not mu'afa. You're not going to be in good shape if you do that. So yeah, there are different levels of that. But here the point is, if you're able to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in private, this is the big deal. This is the great deal. Because no one is going to be watching you 24/7. فَمَنْ اعْتَدَى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. So this is referring to the issue of hunting. But, like I said, this ayah is to us like a principle, like it's a rule we can live by. And it'll save you lots of trouble. And this idea of developing fear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in private is something that's not going to come overnight. It's not easy to be like a great muttaqi. It's going to come through like training, and you train yourself. Let's say you made a mistake, but you feel sorry, you feel guilty. That's good. Feeling guilty is good. That sense of guilt some people no longer have. They've lost the sense of guilt even. So don't say, well, I made a mistake once, I'm doomed. No one is doomed. Until you die, pretty much, you have opportunities to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yes, we all make mistakes, but let us work on this. Let us work to develop this sense of taqwa. How do we develop this sense of taqwa, of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Primarily through doing good actions. It's not going to come out of the blue. Let me summarize all this in two words. Any evil you have here on earth, any kind of evil, is pretty much going to be two types. One or two types. One type is based on doubts. And doubts can come from all directions. Atheists, agnostics, all kinds of people, right? That's one type. And the other type comes from temptations and desires and lust and all of that. That is another type. And these two issues, they are tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they can be solved by two methods. As far as doubts and misconceptions and confusion, usually it is solved by the method of knowledge, when you learn. If you learn, and you learn properly, and you're well established in knowledge, you can pretty much tackle and handle the issue of doubts. But what about temptations? Many people might have knowledge, but they fall victim to temptations. And temptation is not just lust or something like that. It could be money. Some scholars might be bribed. That's temptation too. So how do we solve that? You cannot solve it by knowledge, because the proof is some knowledgeable people fall into these traps. The solution for temptations and desires and whims like that, the solution is a word that we don't hear much these days, and the Quran uses, and that is tazkiyah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. What is tazkiyah? Purification. Your soul needs purification, elevation. So tazkiyah is about purification and elevation. You elevate your soul, because the soul will go down and will cling to earth. You need to elevate your soul. You need to raise your soul. But many people, even when they become religious, they just focus on knowledge, and they think that is enough. And they totally ignore what? They ignore tazkiyah, purification. And that's why you have many people who are students of knowledge and seeking knowledge, but their character, their behavior is, subhanallah, astaghfirullah, totally inappropriate, totally rude to others, especially the elders, totally disrespectful to other scholars. That's because tazkiyah did not happen. This purification did not take place. They did not learn adab, manners, how to treat a scholar, how to deal with a person of knowledge. So you see that missing. So you need the purification in order to stay away from temptations. And that comes through many different ways. It could be through mentoring with a sheikh or coach, like a coach in the sense that he does tarbiyah. He shows you the way. He teaches you. Imam Ahmad, when he used to have his halaqah, it says there used to be like 2,000 people. And only like 400 or 500 people were seeking knowledge. Everybody else was learning the manners of Imam Ahmad. We don't have those anymore. Those people who train others. So it's not just like conveying knowledge, but also training others, coaching others. And there's, I think it's a Japanese proverb, but I think it's applicable here. They say 1 day with a good teacher is better than 1,000 days with a book or studying, like a very thorough study. 1 day with a good teacher is better than 1,000 days with some piece of paper or some books. Because he can teach you all the tricks or all the things he learned through years and years of experience. It's all about experience. So this is what can help when it comes to temptations. If you have this training, you know how to handle temptation. Also doing good actions, like making dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a regular basis, making salat. All of that will improve your iman and your tazkiyah. It'll purify your soul. So this is why we should mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a regular basis. Make a lot of istighfar, a lot of tawbah, a lot of hamd, a lot of tasbih, all of that. It will protect you from shaitan. Okay, I think this is good for now, for this ayah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us both knowledge and purification. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the wisdom, the hikmah, the knowledge, and to give us also taqwa and fear of Him. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to implement this ayah. لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. Inshallah, we'll take like 5 minutes, a break, and then we'll come back to do the fiqh session. Okay. Sorry.